Hello, this is Karen from Karen's Country Living. Today I would like to talk about how to start your project. Specifically, we're going to talk about crochet. This is a crochet project using extremely fine yarn or thread. In comparison, we can pull over some yarn that I dyed. This is worsted weight. This is a weight that a lot of people use for sweaters. And here is this nice fine crochet thread next to it. If you can see the difference, there's a huge difference in size. So the first thing that you need to know is, what size yarn do I need? Okay. You can use crochet thread. You can use sock yarn. This one is actually a knit project using my favorite, a knit to purl to rib across the top, which makes it fit better. I go from the toe up because that way I can try it on as I go and make sure that I'm not making any mistakes. This is a heavier weight yarn. It is sport weight, and it's alpaca and silk. And I dyed this yarn and I knitted this sock. But this being a heavier weight, it's going to give me a little more cushion inside my shoe. And being a nice natural fiber, it's going to wick away moisture and keep me from feeling all sweaty in my boots. They're nice and tall, and I love them. My whole family likes to get socks from me. Another thing that you need to consider is what size crochet hook you're going to use for your crochet project. There are different sizes, this being a rather smallish one, and this being a much larger one. I like the Susan Bates brand because this hook is nice and sharp. If you are a beginner, you might choose one of the others so that you don't split your yarn. You can also use a crochet hook that has a nice rubber cover or is otherwise ergonomically designed, which will help prevent fatigue in your hand. So I've got a lot of different options here. I always keep plenty of crochet hooks in case I lose one and I need to find something similar to continue my project. A little note, if you start with one size and you have to go to a different size because somebody threw away your crochet hook or you lost it at a baseball game, then you're going to want to go to a larger size, not a smaller size. Because if you go to a smaller size, it's going to pucker your project and make it look uneven. So here's all my crochet hooks. I'm going to set them aside. Okay. The color of your project. This is some hand-dyed yarn that I made, and it's this is a worsted weight. This is some yarn that I bought already dyed, but I didn't buy it actually as yarn. I spun it on my own spinning wheel. And the way you can tell hand spun a lot of times is that you have thicker pieces and thinner pieces. It's extremely hard to get perfect yarn when you're hand spinning. I'm sure master spinners can do it. I haven't been spinning quite that long. How do you know what size that one was? Well, you kind of have to guess because it varies in size. So here is a project that I did, and my crochet hook was actually a little bit small for this project. You can tell because there's pretty much no give, and in a blanket you kind of want a little more give in your project. So using the same yarn and a larger hook, here is another overlay crochet, and you can see that there is a lot more stretch in this one. You can go any portion of it and pull, and it's going to stretch, and that's going to be much nicer for your blanket ultimately. So now, how are we going to start our project? If we're going to start our project as a flat project, then chances are we're going to do a simple single crochet. And you can see that it's springy, partially because this is wool and partially because it's just a chain. And I did not use a hook that was way too small. Once you've achieved your chain, then you're going to want to do something with it. In this case, we did a chain and then did a slip stitch down the side. This is something you could do to make a handle or to tie up a bag. Another way to use your chain might be to turn around and do a single crochet into each chain below and make a stretch of single crochet, and then proceed on with your project. You can also make a chain and form a loop and then crochet into that loop. When you do that, you're going to have a hole in the middle. Sometimes that hole in the middle is a design element, and you definitely want to follow the directions if that's the case. If the hole in the middle is not a design element, then you can use what's called a magic loop. And that's what it looks like with single crochets in it. So now we're going to do a little mini project just using some yarn that I happen to have lying around. If I can find the yarn I was going to use. Hang on just a second. Okay. This is Caron Simply Soft, and I had used that for my Afghan. So you can see this is color Cool Green. And again, colors really do look different on different monitors. And depending on the lighting that was used when the video was made. So I'm going to pull out a length of yarn, and this particular yarn is medium weight, and they recommend a US 8 knitting needle and a US H 8 crochet hook. So here is my Susan Bates, you can see there, and I turn it over, and this one is a K. This is going to be a little bit easier for you to see than an H. So I'm going to go ahead and use the K hook, which is a bit big for this yarn. So let's start off by showing you how to start your chain. You're going to make a loop. See my loop? Then I'm going to put my loop through that one, and that's the loop that I'm going to have and work with. If I pull the ends, it tightens it up. This is a slip knot. The reason it's called a slip knot is quite easy. It slips and gets tighter. You don't want it so tight that you can't knit into it, so if you pull, you can make it bigger, as big as you want. Of course, we're crocheting here, so let's go ahead and make it a little smaller. There we go. So simple. I happen to have a way that I like to run my yarn so that I can keep my tension the same. You'll have to experiment to decide exactly how you want your yarn tensioned. Real quick now, here's our single chain, and it's as easy as pull a loop through the existing loop, and that's one chain. Do it again, and that's another chain. And you'll continue like that until you have enough chains on your hook for your project. Some projects might say chain 4, chain 6, or they might say chain 200. If it were a chain 200, I think I would look at the pattern and decide, do I really want to do that? Because I'm not real fond of knitting into chains. I'm going to pull a little more yarn out. Okay, if your project requires you to knit into, or crochet, into the back of your chain, you're going to skip the closest chain to your hook and go into the next one. And this is for single crochet only. Single crochet is simply pull a loop through that loop and then pull another loop through both on the hook. And you would repeat that all the way down. I would highly recommend that you sit down while you're watching TV or something and practice chaining until you are so comfortable with it, it just is second nature. That will help you later on in your projects. The same thing with your single crochet. Once you have your basic chain ready, practice your single crochet until, again, it is super easy. Research has indicated that working with yarn and making projects is very, very relaxing. It's almost like meditation. And when you get so good at it that you're not having to think about what you're doing, you're just thinking single crochet, not go through your loop, pull a loop through, then pull another loop through all the rest of them. When you get to that point where all of that becomes one thing in your mind, then it becomes a meditative journey. So that's what it looks like when you do your chain and then do a single crochet onto that. So what else could we do? I said I don't like doing chains that much. So again, I would do my slip knot. See here where my slip knot is? Pull it tight. Put it on your hook. Okay, I'm going to do a single crochet that does not involve a chain. Chain. Okay. You're going to go down through that last loop in the back, pull a loop through, and then this is a chainless method. So you're going to make your chain by doing one chain, then you're going to pull through all the loops. Okay, now repeat. Go through this bottom loop, pull a loop through, then you're going to pull one, and that makes your chain, and do it again, and that's your single crochet. One more time. Through the bottom loop, pull it through, pull through one chain only. That's your chain. One loop. Then you pull through two loops. So that's 3 single crochets and 3 chains all at once. This makes it much easier to count, and it prevents you from having to do single crochets in the back of your work. So that's the second method. Okay? One of the things that I showed you was chaining and then slip stitching all the way back. So if I chain 4, then I come back, skip the first chain, turn your yarn so you can see what you're doing, skip that one, right through here, you're going to do a slip knot. And a slip knot is simply that loop that you would pull up. If you pull the loop through both of those, that would be a single crochet. Instead, you simply go through that original loop. So let's do that again. Go through, pull that through. That would normally be the 2 loops that you would make a single crochet from. Instead, you'll pull it through the original loop. And last one. Pull it through. That would be your single crochet, but instead, you pull it through that last loop as well. So that is your slip stitch. It was a chain 4, and then you went and did a slip stitch all the way back. And that's what it looks like. Okay. So that's pretty neat, huh? I think the only thing we really need to cover now is that magic loop. Magic loop is not hard to do. You're just going to wrap it around. Most people do 1 wrap. I like 2 wraps because that gives me a little more security. So now I have this double loop that I've made. If you bring your hook through, you bring a loop up, and then you make a chain. That's the start of your magic loop. So let's say your magic loop requires you to do 8 stitches. Okay, 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you've got 8 loops on your hook. Now I'm going to make this loop really big so I don't accidentally lose it. And I'm going to put my hook through this one just to make sure that it doesn't get lost in my tightening of the loop. Okay, so that's the two sides. And in between you have 3 pieces of yarn. So what I do is I pull on that extra bit, that's the tail, and the part that got tight when I pulled on the tail is the part that I'm going to pull on next. So I pull a little more. Okay, yeah, it's this one that's the tightest. So again, from that same edge that you pulled that tail through, you're going to pull that one. And when you do that, your hole is going to disappear. See? And if you happen to have a little extra string in there, you can just pull it out. And you have a nice hole that is covered up. It's almost completely closed. There's just a teeny tiny little hole there. Okay? Take your tail and pull, and that makes that go away as well. And you can pull as hard as you want on that tail, because all it's going to do is make that hole in the center of your work disappear. So what you want to do is take this loop back up that you didn't want to lose. We're going to pull it quite a bit tighter because, you know, I just had it loose so I wouldn't lose it, right? Go through that first single crochet, pull a loop through, and then pull it through the other one. That is a slip stitch ending to your row. And you've got that nice itty bitty, pretty much non-existent hole. Most projects then will have you chain either 1 or 2, and single crochet will be 2 in every stitch all the way around. So you'll go from your beginning of 8 stitches will all of a sudden become 16 stitches. So that's how you increase on something like this. This is how your amigurumi is going to be made. Very similar method. And this is also how you start off on your mandalas. Mandalas are very common now. People like making them. And they make beautiful rugs and absolutely beautiful wall art. But they also make wonderful blankets. And for a blanket for a baby, Caron Simply Soft is very good because it's soft, but it's also durable. And it's important that a baby blanket be durable because you're going to wash it quite a bit. Okay, so there we are, and we've come all the way around, and now, oops, I've only got 1 stitch in that one, so let's do 1 more stitch, and then we're going to do a slip stitch to finish that round. Normally, you'll have 2 stitches in every stitch all the way around, but then as you get bigger, you'll wind up with fewer stitches in each stitch because otherwise you're going to wind up with a very large flat plate or maybe something that curls up on the ends like that. Okay, here's an example of something that I did. Here's the bottom. You can see that this is the same basic principle, but it's in more of a spiral than it is in a separate loop. There's my magic loop, And then I did all my crochets all the way around and just kept going and going and going. And then you can see that there's a white triangle on the side and then a heart. Let's turn that around so you can see that heart better. Okay, that's on the outside. This is on the inside. They're the same. So this is 100% reversible. So there it is, reversed, and the bottom is now the inside of the bowl. And it looks the same, whichever way you choose to do it. And this particular size actually fits on top of my head, which was not by any means the point behind the bowl, but I thought it was kind of funny. So, these are some of the things that you can make if you decide to pick up crochet as one of your hobbies. In my opinion, every person should have their own hobby. It doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't even matter if it turns out exactly the way you wanted it to. It's the doing of the hobby. It's the enjoyment of it. Take your time, enjoy what you're doing, practice, practice, practice until it's a meditative type project. Okay, now I'm going to let my daughter show you how to finger crochet. So this is just a chain. That's what she's making. And it's very tight. So this is not something that you would probably want to have to crochet into. But if you're making garlands for Christmas, this is definitely something that you could do. And it's also a very easy project for children. Just make it tight and just keep going to whatever length you want. And if there's a little bubble or something, don't worry about it. That's what makes it handmade. She didn't like her bubble, so she's taken it out and she's going to start from there. You can see she's very fast at this. And occasionally she has to make her loop smaller. So that is how she does her finger crochet. And you can see that my great big old hook makes a much bigger crochet chain, but that's because I'm going to crochet into this chain. If your goal is to make a garland, this is a very tight, very nice piece, and definitely, like I said, something that you can do with your kids. And any way you can get your kids involved in art is important, because most schools have cut the majority of their art program, if not all of it. So you want to encourage your kids to be artistic, because artistic makes the brain think differently. It makes them creative. And creativity is part of what makes new discoveries. What if? What if I did this? What if I did that? Well, that's about all for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.